This is part 19 of my step-by-step series to restore a Singer Model 337. And I want to install the motor belt today and adjust the tension on it and show you the way that I do it. It's a little bit different than in the service guide or service manual, but it works easier for me. Before we get started, I had the good fortune of selling my Singer Model 500A that's on my YouTube channel, and I put it up on Craigslist Friday afternoon, and somebody emailed me a couple hours later and drove down from a city about an hour and a half away Saturday morning and bought it. So I took some of the profits and I spent $11 on a lighting upgrade. So I'm going to, since I'm doing some of these closer shots, ta-da, I'm going to see if this comes out better in the video when I look at it on a computer and stuff. But anyway, if you watched some of my others, this black is the bottom mount for the motor bracket with the adjustment washer and the spacer washer and so forth. So to get started to install the belt, now they recommend you do this with the machine standing up, but I'll show you later. It's hard for me to see inside here looking from the back of the machine. So I kind of do it on the side here, and you go in and you loosen this bolt a couple of turns so that you can go in and get in the little slot of this adjustment washer and turn it. So when you're going to remove or replace the motor belt, you want the smallest space between the screw and the bracket so that the bracket can push up closer to the hand wheel, so that you get some slack, to assemble it. And then once you get the belt on everything, you can turn it back like this towards the wider spacing, and you can start kind of stretching the belt out and putting tension on it. So to start, I want to get it at the thinnest spot and move the bracket up. And by doing that, that moves this up closer. You can move this up closer to the hand wheel. This is the pulley that comes out of the center of the motor. So when you have your hand wheel, and then I've got the new belt that I bought there, and in the parts diagram that you can download free from Singer, it shows the part of this frequently, but if not, any of the belt sellers online, you give them the model of the machine, the brand and the model, and they have the belt for you. And I've never had one of them give me the wrong belt, so I guess that's their business, and they know what they're doing. So before I do this, if I was just replacing the belt, I would have cleaned this all off with a cloth or a pad with some of the crud cutter or alcohol and get it all cleaned up and so forth. Then, because the hand wheel spins on this when it's in the free motion just to wind the bobbin, I put a little oil, a couple drops of oil on that shaft here. Oops, let me shake it up a little. Years ago when I first started, I'd put a dab of grease. Then I found out the grease is sticky. So even when I moved the stop motion screw to just wind the bobbin, the needle bar would kind of creep up and down a little bit. And I wrote my friend over in Pago, and he says, "Oh, no, don't put grease. Just put a couple drops of oil on that." So since I've been doing that, I never had any needle creep anymore. So what you want to do is you want to take your hand wheel and put the belt in there. And then that's going to give you a loop on the bottom, and you put that loop around the pulley on the motor. And then you stretch the belt up. Trying to see if you'll be able to see this. Stretch the belt up, and you should have enough slack to get it onto that shaft like that. And then you want to check that you're in the pulley and feel around the sides to make sure that the belt is completely in that groove, that it's not, twisted out over one side or the other. So this is where Singer says that you take your screwdriver and you go through this hole down here into those adjustment screws I was showing you, and you do it. And I just have a hard time seeing because the screws underneath the plug housing. It's really difficult for me, so that's why I lay the machine on the side. So from my point of view over here, I can see to make the adjustment, and I can see the belt and kind of pinch the belt or push on one side to see the tension. So to get started, this is already loose, and you have it to raise that up. You put your belt on. Now you're going to put your screwdriver in that white kind of nylon adjustment washer, and you're going to start turning it towards the bottom of the machine. And I'll turn it way fast. Maybe you can see it moving. So you want to turn the longer length that's between the screw and the bracket to start moving the motor farther from the hand wheel. And I find the point that's about the farthest away, if it'll go that far. Sometimes on a brand new belt you can barely get the thing on, but this one seems a pretty good fit, so I'm gonna, not all the way, but I'm gonna back it off a little bit and see how my tension is. So if I come up here and turn it around there, I've got play, and I don't know if it's too much or not. It doesn't look too bad. So what I'm going to do now is put the clamp washer and the clamp screw back on it. And this has two little ears that stick in, and the ears kind of go up at an angle, and you want those angled ears towards you. And you push the belt, make sure it's all the way onto the machine, and you hang it. Now you notice I got two of these nubs up and one down. If you put this together and it won't unlock the tension properly, so the stop motion doesn't work properly, you have to turn it 180 degrees. So I always start with the two ears up, and for some reason that has been working pretty good for me. And so that this won't fall off, I just hold it a little bit with a little screwdriver or the end of that little paintbrush, and I take my stop motion screw, is what it's technically called. Most people call it a knob, but it's technically a screw, and I'll get it up there and backtrack a little bit, see if I can get that first thread going. What I found is all this wiggling around, if I don't hold that clamp, it just slides off. onto the thread of the screws, and then it's hard to get your finger back in there to get it restarted. Well, when I did this morning, it went on so easy. Let me make sure this hasn't slipped. No, it's still in place, so it's just me. Let's try again. I usually put a drop of oil on these threads too. Maybe that's why some of before I'd put a glob of grease on there. But let's see if there. Now I got it seated, and now it should go on. I can see that my knob fell though. I think I took my screwdriver off too soon. So this fell. Sometimes you can just set the machine so this is facing up in the air. Let me see if I put my little block of wood under here. That's still in the camera view, yeah. Maybe that'll put a little angle and this will hang on better. So let's try that again and put some pressure on here. I can get it. Yep. I can get it seated on there. When you're working this on your table right in front of you, it's a little bit easier. Okay, now I'm getting it on there, and I think my clamp is staying in place. So we're gonna give it a try here. Then you have to go ahead and I had this backed off enough to be able to install it. So now we're going to tighten it up, because the end of that screw, this baby screw, sticks through the big screw, and that's what catches the ear on that washer. So to see if it's going to work, you're going to hold the outside, turn the stop motion screw towards the front of the machine. Whoop. Now, see how that went? Yep. It should go just about an eighth or a quarter of a turn. So that means I probably putting the two ears up on this wasn't right for the position of the hand wheel. So I'm going to back this screw out again. So it's almost flush with there. This time I'm going to install this so that just one of these tabs is more up towards the top end. I'll try that. And see if I can hold that again while I put in the stop motion screw. Come on, you. There we go. But those threads are so big you think they'd just be easy to start. But everything is very well machined for tolerances. There we go. Get that gently. Hey. Now I'll tighten this up and see if that was my problem. So again, I'll hold the outer wheel. There. Hear that? So that screw is stopping on the ear of that, and that's enough to unlock it. So when the wheel spins with the motor, it does not move the needle bar or the feed dogs or the hook. But if I turn that stop screw to the right and lock it back in, now you'll see the other parts move. So the whole purpose of that is just to disengage the shaft and all these other mechanisms so that only the hand wheel's turning for the bobbin winder. So now we got that. I'll leave that locked in, and see, I look at the belt there, and the belt seems just a pinch loose to me. It's like a little too much play. There's nothing. It just says to reinstall the belt. It doesn't give you like a slack of a 1/4 inch or something, which some of the others have been. It's pretty close. So here's what I would do next time is I'd go back under here, and since I think that's pretty good, I would tighten this screw up. So now that adjustment washer and the spacing washer and the motor mount, they're all clamped together and tight. They got to be tight, but don't crack that. Probably pretty hard to replace. So now that I got that going, you can still, let's see, you see that, I guess. I'm going to plug in the foot pedal and see if I run stuff. You know, I never even saw if the motor worked on this before I started restoration. So I'm going to disengage the stop motion, and I'll take my foot pedal and I'll just push the button here and see how my wiring is and how it goes. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, well, the motor works. I see the lights on. This might be okay. Let's see if I re-engage the stop motion knob, and let's see if we can put that behind there. So let me see how that looks. Oops. So you saw this, right? So I wanted to turn so that you could see when it's re-engaged now, the needle bar and the rotary hook and the feed dog should all move. If it slips, that means my belt's not tight enough. If it barely moves, that means my belt's too tight. Oh, so it looks pretty good. See if I put a little tension on the hand wheel over here, does it? Let's see what happens. Yeah, I cannot make the belt slip. So to me that's good. If I was putting a little tension on the wheel and the pulley's still going, of course, so if the belt started sliding and slipping, I would feel it and see it. So this looks pretty good for the tension. I'm happy with that. Just to show you that amount of slack. And some machines, they'll actually tell you like to put a ruler here, and when you can put moderate pressure on the belt and it'll move about a 1/4 inch, that's about right. Again, this particular model in the service guide, it just said to do this and then adjust it so that there is tension, quote unquote, on the belt, and then tighten it up. So if the belt was too tight and you heard it kind of straining and binding, then you would want to come back in here and loosen this, and you would turn that to move the motor bracket up, so a little more slack. If the belt was kind of flapping around and noisy and slipping, you would want to turn this adjustment screw to the left to bring the motor bracket down and put more tension on the screw. So I just got lucky. It looked to me like it had about a 1/4 inch of slack, and I figured that's a good place to start based on the history of the other machines. So I got lucky. It seems fine to me. Also, when you put a new belt on like this, it can be very tight. I've had some that are just, wow, oh, so tight and hard to get on there. A couple of them in the no, it wasn't 600. I guess it was 200 series. I actually had to put like just a piece of ribbon, a 1/4-inch ribbon, under the belt and kind of slip it. I had to put this part on first, and then put a piece of ribbon under here while I turned it, and kind of forced the belt around the pulley because it was just so tight. Then after sewing for a week or two, it loosened up, and I had to adjust it and put more tension. So that can happen with a new belt. If you start getting the stuff freezing and not moving, I mean, there's no plastic ears in here that have broken, or everything is steel, you know. So it's just going to be the belt. So if it starts slipping like that, especially you're starting to sew like some heavy down in them, and all of a sudden the needle just kind of quits, you know, and then goes and like that. That's just a belt slippage, and you know, that's a sign that, okay, the belt's broken in now, I guess, you know. So it's stretched a little tiny bit, a 32nd of an inch, and you can tighten it up. And you can also set the machine like that, and you know, loosen the bolt and put your screwdriver in the adjusting washer, and start running the machine slowly. Come on, machine. And then you can come in here and start moving it until you see the needle and everything moving good, and you can keep putting more tension, and you'll hear the motor start to strain a little, and back it up. So you can really fine tune it. But look, it's a very simple adjustment. They recommend taking the 2 screws and taking off the back plate, putting your screwdriver down in here and looking down in here for that, and turning the screwdriver to adjust this. But I just have a heck of a time seeing it. So I lay the thing on its backside here and take off the drip pan. It's 1 thumb screw, and go in and play around with it that way. But that's the way to remove the belt. You know, you would take out the little screw, take out the big screw. You would loosen the nut and adjust that washer so that to move this up, you could pull the motor up and then slip off the hand wheel. So let me just make sure that I tighten that nut, which I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. And you don't have to over tighten it, just snug it up. So it's looking pretty good, and we'll go full speed. And I need to do a rehabilitation of the foot pedal to adjust that a little bit, but everything else is looking good, and I'm still fascinated with that oscillating hook. It sounds a little noisier to me, and I read before that the reason Singer went to the rotary hook was it was quieter, because it just kept going around in a circle. Where this hook, if you can see that in there, this hook, you'll see it oscillating back and forth. Yeah. Maybe if I did it by hand, there it goes up, come back down, up, down, up, down. So at that oscillation point, you kind of hear a clicky noise. But I'm interested once I get it all set up to sew. So that's how you remove or replace the motor belt. Maybe I'll remove it real quick, so if I went over that part too fast. So I'm gonna loosen the bolt 2 or 3 turns. There's a little slot in here, so I'm going to turn that towards the motor, and you can push up the bracket then. And when you get up here, you want to back this little set screw out about halfway, and then unscrew the stop motion screw, and the washer will fall right off. And with this kind of up, you want to gently slide off the hand wheel, like that. So that's how to take it off, put it on, and adjust the tension. And this is a Model 337, but many of the singers with the built-in quote-unquote motor instead of hanging off the back end, that's how you remove, install, and adjust the motor belt. And that's part 19. I'm anxious to see if my lighting investment made anything better. I'll find out pretty soon when I load this and edit it. Thanks so much for watching, and I think in part 20 what I need to do is just adjust the height of that pressure foot bar, because I took it out and cleaned it and just kind of eyeballed it back in, but now I need to set it to the factory recommended height. So that'll be next if you're still around watching them. Thanks again.